there. So we're joined now by members from both houses of Congress to comment. Congressman Brad Sherman, Democrat from California, welcome back, and Senator Tom Coburn, Republican from Oklahoma. Mr. Sherman, I know you often feel I don't give you enough time, so I want to begin with you tonight, sir. I want to ask you, look, this country is in trouble. We've got to slash spending. We've got to go to deficits. We've got to go to debt. We've got to grow the economy. Why isn't the president, why isn't the whole Congress, Republicans aren't clean on this, doing more, talking more, coming up with plans on the main issue of our time, near bankruptcy of the U.S.?
Well, I think the Congress, the people of this country are dedicated to trying to create jobs in the economy, boost the economy, and deal with the deficit. The problem is there's no general agreement as to what should be done. You're talking about the deficit, and yet you're not talking about revenue. We need revenue along with dealing with entitlements and spending. I think the president gave an excellent State of the Union address, and he may not have mentioned the word deficit until the 25th minute, but he was talking about the economy for virtually the entire speech.
Well, Senator Coburn, I don't think much of the economy either. I don't think the country does. But look, this is going to be the fourth straight year of trillion-dollar deficits. Our debt is now larger than our gross domestic product, and that's only going to continue. We are fast becoming an entitlement nation. From a recent article in Investors Business Daily, half the households in this country now get direct federal benefits. Isn't there any urgency? Am I the only guy out there who says you guys got to do something?
Well, I think it's you and me, Larry. I think nobody's talking about the real problems in front of our country. The Congress passed the Budget Control Act, which didn't cut spending. It just slowed the rate of growth. What we need is absolute cuts in spending, and we need to reform the tax code so that we get a pro-growth tax system in this country that will actually create jobs. The other thing that I would add, the president touched on it, but not in a meaningful way, we import over $300 billion worth of energy a year into this country. We have the resources in this country, along with creating 2 million jobs, where we can be totally independent of any imported oil or gas coming into this country. That's how we need to renew America, and that's how you'll create jobs. We have the XL Keystone Pipeline, 20,000 jobs initially. We have 146,000 miles of pipeline already across this country. The fact that it's delayed has no connection with reality or common sense or the scientific facts. It has everything to do with politics. So you can't say you're for natural gas and energy improvements at the same time blocking a pipeline that actually would markedly increase oil production in Oklahoma and Texas just by relieving the pressure on Cushing.
Well, I agree with all that, but let me go back to Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman, where's the urgency to get some derivative of Simpson-Bowles, something like $4 or $5 or $6 trillion worth of spending cuts, which will take down the baselines for debt and deficits? And I want to add Simpson-Bowles and Paul Ryan. This is the kind of bold action we need, Brad. The whole country's waiting for it, and so far, Washington is asleep. It's asleep at the wheel.
We need bold action on revenues as well. The way we tax multinational corporations is we let a company design a television set in Japan, make it in Taiwan, sell it in the United States for a huge profit, and then the company says we made all the profit on that transaction in the Cayman Islands. I think we need bold action to recognize at least $1 trillion in revenue over the next 10 years by having a different system for determining the taxation of multinational
But Brad
corporations.
Sherman, we talked about, I'll get you $1 trillion by getting rid of tax expenditures, all the loopholes and all the special exemptions and all the corporate carve-outs. I'll get you that. But the president didn't spend any time talking about tax reform. He didn't spend any time talking about entitlement reform. He didn't spend any time talking about Simpson-Bowles. That's what's got me up in arms, Brad.
Well, he did talk about a Warren Buffett tax, and he is not going to negotiate with himself. That is to say, Democrats want to see entitlement reform, spending cuts, and revenue increases as part of one package. The position of so many Republicans is, Democrats, you take the Republican position, you cut spending, you cut entitlements, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then we'll continue not to talk about revenue. Demand that the president make concessions to the Republican side when they've made no concessions on revenue, I think is absurd.
But Senator Coburn, it's just what Mr. Sherman said, with all due respect, sounds like an excuse. It just sounds like a debating point. We're not talking about anything, Senator Coburn.
Larry,
That's what troubles me. Nothing seems to be on the table.
That's poppycock. I put $900 billion worth of tax revenue enhancements on the table in a back in black. I put entitlement reform. I put out a study that showed $300 billion worth of duplication and waste and fraud in the federal government. Not one of those things have been acted on by the majority leader, nor any of the committees in the Senate. It's all talk. It's all a blame game. America can no longer wait for the politicians to quit blaming each other. What they need is action. We put forth those proposals, and we embrace them. And that's revenue enhancements by eliminating the significant subsidies that go to the very wealthy in this country, marked increase in those revenues, changing the tax code and lowering the rates, and eliminating those, enhancing revenue, and markedly working to save Medicare and save Social Security.
We need a huge package, Mr. Coburn, Dr. Coburn. We need a huge package. We need
I put it out there with a $9 trillion plan.
And I just don't see, maybe you should just go down. The president's a friend of yours. I think he gave you a shout out in the State of the Union. Go down there and say, here's what we need to do, sir. Here's what we need to do. The public is clamoring for it. Other than that, Senator Coburn, and I'll say the same thing, Congressman Sherman, there's a demoralization going on right now around the country. People are giving up hope. We're just wafting along on the road to bankruptcy. Senator Coburn, I'll give you a shot, and then Brad Sherman a shot.
I think you change who's in Washington. You eliminate career politicians, and you bring regular old common folk Americans to Washington. We'll solve this problem very quickly.
We're flat out of time. Gentlemen, thank you. Senator Tom Coburn of Oklahoma. Congressman